So today we're going to go to the book of Acts. Now, what do we know about the book of Acts? Well, interestingly, right at the start of the book of Acts, the book is addressed to a guy called Theophilus. Now, if you don't know who Theo was a wealthy dignitary of the day. So we don't know if he was a business person or maybe a judge or someone like that, but he was a wealthy dignitary of the day who was a believer in Jesus Christ. And what he did, and I reckon this is a beautiful story. So Theophilus funded Luke to follow the journey of Paul and document the miracles, document the story. And that is the book of Acts, all right? We only have the book of Acts today because a wealthy business person, wealthy dignitary of the day, decided to put his money where his mouth is, and he paid a doctor to follow Paul to validate the miracles. That blows my mind because Luke's other name was the beloved physician. He was a doctor. You know what? Here's an interesting thought. Luke was the only one with the credibility to be able to document a miracle. All the rest were just crazy believers in Jesus, but he was a doctor and he was funded by Theophilus. So next time somebody says to you, money is of the devil, or, God doesn't care less about money, then tell them to never read the book of Acts ever again because we only have it because somebody used the wealth that God provided them for God's cause. And it's an amazing thing, right? That's a side rant, has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I just love it, right? So Acts 16, 25. So here's the preamble, right? You know the story. Paul and Silas are going through town. There's this woman who was full of sorcery, and she just kind of follows them around, being annoying in the background with Paul and Silas. Paul cracks it after a couple of days and just says, in the name of Jesus, come out. And he calls out an evil spirit out of her. And then the people that own her lose their income stream, so they get really upset. They drag Paul and Silas into the square, and says the crowd joined in the attack. The magistrate ordered them to be beaten and flogged with rods. That's got to be a good day's work. However, this is the bit that I really want to pick up. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. You ever thought about that? Like, they're just going about doing their thing. They harmed nobody, right? They got beaten and flogged with rods, thrown into jail. And what do we find out at midnight? They're singing. They're singing praises to God. And not only that, the other prisoners were listening. They had a huge amount of influence at that time. So, you know what? What about you? Like, obviously, you and I, we've never suffered persecution, right? Like these guys had. But what happens to you when you feel like you're under attack? What happens to you when your faith walk gets heavy, right? What is your response when it all seems uphill, nothing makes sense, and you just want to quit? What do you do as a believer? See, we can learn a lot from Paul. They obviously caught something different to what the world does. They thought, hang on a minute, under persecution, my love for God never changes. I'm singing hymns. And the kind of person that thinks like that blows my mind. Paul's my hero, right? Silas definitely. Like, what kind of person under persecution starts singing? We can learn a lot from them. Here's what I do find though. A lot of people, when they come under persecution, when they feel like they're under attack, when the going gets heavy in their faith, they actually slightly defect to the things of the world. So that may mean, let's put it practically, that may mean they start drinking a little bit more, maybe their language gets a bit loose, they get angry and cranky, real snappy under persecution. Versus what Paul and Silas did under persecution, they get closer to God, right? See, think about it from a spiritual attack perspective. If the enemy can push that button in your life, right, and call that spiritual attack, and then he can see the pattern that you defect to the things of the world, he'll push that button all day, every day. If the enemy sees that he pushes that button and you get closer to God, he ain't going to want to push that button too much. All right, and that's what we see from these guys. They, under persecution and under attack, they were amazing. You know, next time you're sitting there and you're thinking, I can't handle this, it's all too much for me, it's unfair, let's take a leaf out of the book and let's start singing praises and hymns to God. And watch what happens when we shift the atmosphere, because people will be watching. People will be watching.